like hovering just above it.
Is that like 100 meters from New Zealand?
Yes.
So it's really a big distance. So you want to line up real tight and clear because otherwise it's going to get lost.
One touch on that, my last one. If you began at the subway, you end in the ocean, there should be some recognition of those 2 points. Because it doesn't continue out into the sea, it stops, it terminates, begins and it ends. So right now it's just kind of a funny abstract sausage cut off both ends with no particular recognition.
Well, in this model, I mean, there's a, I understand, I'm not.
I'm looking here at this.
But there is a pavilion at the end that's in the ocean.
Maybe it should have been vertical. I mean, in other words, if you start off with something horizontal for the subway, you end up with something vertical at the ocean where you can see out over the ocean. Or something. You know, it's like, it just...
I mean, you're accomplishing something amazing. You can leave your Filipino talking like they were out of this. That's pretty amazing. That's a pretty amazing accomplishment, talking like they're like architects. So, if I were you, I would feel proud about that.
Did you feel like it was done? I mean, did you feel like this was done, or you were?
No, I mean, I think, no, I got really lost in these and didn't get to do the, images that I kind of set up and then didn't get back to.
Did you start out?
So that was the tragic.
These first couple panels start to have some like color. People.
Ya, de una vez.
No, I totally.
¿Quieres los pins?
It's like a tutorial. You just need to figure out a representational system or mode or model that works for you.
Windows.
This is a process model rather than.
Well, it's a beginning.
But no, yeah, I totally agree. And
you have to figure out how to represent it to us. Maybe student did in a way that communicates your ideas and it's alive. Life feels so life.
I agree.
But that's what learning is all about. Also, managing time is really important in architecture. Figure out when the final product is due and how to get there. That's what we learn in our students. It's a really important lesson. Because you still have a long run. You didn't even get out. You didn't get really set out here in the water or show us what they're really like. Architecture.
So that's a very good point. I think straight lines are a lot less forgiving than the jury has been on.
It's supposed to be the other way around. We're letting our profession down, right? Oh, you know what's been said, right? Is it unfair or?
No.
I think it's. Even with the previous project, it's interesting that it's done with a kind of sympathy. So somewhere along the line, there are aspects of this project that we you've got a ramp ladder. You've got some ramp ladders in the jury, so in theory it's quite hard to go wrong. Of course, with the ramp ladders, I've seen a few good ones.
Because the other thing, it's going to get better.
I have to do with the stage management just before the next one.
The new normal is a lot of less people, more money.
Y para proyectar están apagando las luces, ¿no? Porque no se ve nada.
Ahorita que...
O sea, ya han proyectado.
Sí, ya proyecté yo ayer.
Ah, y apagaron y se ve
Se
bien.
apagaron, sí, se ve bien.
Eduardo se botó, ¿no? Metros cuadrados de
Avíntalo.
Okay, so I'm going to run a video first. Okay. So it's basically interesting of how people's desires could affect the way in which space is appropriated. So I basically pinpointed these places that seem to have a lot of potential for me. The subway station at Brighton Beach, the pier basically, and some other spots where a lot of activity was happening.
Oh, these are Russian mafia?
Brighton Beach.
Yeah.
I recognize them.
So for midterm, I had this solution in which I was appropriating and modifying space with these mechanical items, which were sort of like bungalows that modify the, well, you have to modify the pier in order to respond to them. But in some sort of way, this over-specialization of the result
wasn't what I was looking for, mainly because since it was so specifically designed, that was about it. I mean, I couldn't go much further. I would have redesigned all the other spots that seemed interesting to me, but that approach seemed kind of limited, because what I really wanted was to have more responsive system, and that could interact better with the actual DNA from coming out. I mean, signage, boardwalk, all these crevices in the structure, the whole issue of temporality that's present in Coney Island. So instead of over specializing, what I did from midterm on was to try to come up with a system that was mainly divided into two simple actors. And the first one was what I call the pollinizers, which carried all the DNA, the construction, the constituent materials around and build the actual structure and carry around the substructure, in which this one's the minimal living parts will congregate. So that was basically it.
These are mobile, they crawl around?
Yeah, they crawl around. Due to the, what I call capitalistic, I don't know if it's well stated, but driven by the actual desires of the users. There's a commercial desire or desire to be located on a pier, or for example in winter designed to be all stuck together because of cold conditions or whatever. I mean, I'm not trying to specify what the conditions are, but try to come up with a flexible answer for desirable conditions. So here you can see it's almost like stating it in a bad word, like putrefaction, like taking over of these things, substructure, cladding, infrastructure. And I chose these particular places, the pier, the junction to the pier and the boardwalk, and the vacant space, because it was, you could say it was my own desire to use them. It's not like a particular answer to that. Well, for me the pier was the most important because of all the activities that took place there.
Are those little pods or living units? Or?
Yeah, that's the minimal living units. Regarding the living units, they, for one, they're minimal, so you could say you can just live there.
It's like a hotel or something, right?
Like a mobile hotel,
Yeah.
yeah. So you have, to the inside you have virtual reality, and to the outside, because it's congregated, you could use them as how fireflies congregate and communicate, relating to the signage thing. So that's the presentation. Sorry.
These are your drawings?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's a kind of brilliant scheme, something we've seen before. It's not like the first time we've ever seen this kind of, morphing machines and pods and so on. But, wow, what a strong spirit the project has. And, I just want to salute that before I shoot down some other parts. Yeah, right. Really, I have to say, you really attacked this idea with passion and with thoroughness, too, up to the level you've taken it.
So, well, maybe I should go over the boards. This is basically the 4 parts of intervening, which are the kiosk area, the vacant lot next to the pier and the baseball, the junction between these two, and the most relevant to me, which was the pier. This part, I chose to include the midterm part just to do a contrast on it. This is very, we can say rigid, and this is more, it has a shape now, but the argument is that the shape or the configuration is dependent on pressure. So, for example, it's a pier, but in summer, maybe everyone wants to live on the pier, so more pressure is put on it, so it starts branching, or it even starts building up a tower-like structure.
So the pier moves kind of?
Well, it totally comes apart.
Comes apart and goes back together?
Yeah, because these little constituent parts are carried by the, what I call pollinizers. build ant-like creatures.
So little pods, you said?
Well, I have two types of pods. The ant-like ones that carry the material and draw the infrastructural lines, and the actual living pods. And I have the basic living pod and also a family living pod in which you can have your wife and your kid. Anyway, so one interesting thing I realized after doing this is when I did the sections, how I thought about the pier as being inhabitable both by people and by pods. So you could perceive some kind of orthodox walking surface, or more, how can you say, friendly to like people on their bare feet. Whereas when I thought about the winter congregation, it was more towards just the pods. So when you see the winter congregation, it's just a holding structure for these pods, and it's not intended for humans. And this is where I draw all the sort of parts from. The skeleton parts, the cladding parts, all the billboard parts, and it's basically a compilation of what you saw in the video, the steps toward the fully materialization of the scheme, and that's basically the pods. The old pods, which for me were not so flexible or adaptable. I don't know if you can see this, but this is summer when they're disseminated, basically on the pier and in other parts of the beach, and winter when there's nothing to do all around, so they congregate on this empty space to create their own winter space, you could say. And this is the idea of inside information projecting into the person, and to the outside when they are all like here.
What are you projecting into the person?
Because it's such a minimal space, you know, since we have now computers, we have internet, we have iPods, it's this information coming in like virtual reality. So you might be at Coney Island, but you could be fed information to the inside. I mean, you don't need, it's the idea of not needing actual space because it's so minimal, but you could have virtual reality space or